take your position. Rise up, make that decision. God will provide all your needs. He wants you to succeed. Have faith of a mustard seed. Get up on your feet. Rise up.
Welcome to the Drexwell Seymour Show. Today I'm so delighted to have a special guest. I say special because, I don't know him, but of course I know his mom, Charlamagne Brooks, who's my very good neighbor on the island of South Caicos. And of course I read about her son Tyler, and I always wanted to have an opportunity, to have a discussion with him because I believe he has an incredible story that can provide a lot of hope and inspiration for other people and encourage people to rise up. And this is what this show is about, to encourage people to rise up and take their position no matter what circumstances that they find themselves in. And I believe Tyler has demonstrated that he will continue to rise up. And with that said, I just want to welcome Tyler to the show. And I don't know Tyler very well. As I mentioned earlier, I know his mom, and of course his grandmother, who's one of my very close friends, Ms. Annie Brooks. And with that said, I want to welcome Tyler. I want Tyler to introduce himself to you. Welcome, Tyler.
Yeah, once again, just want to say thank you one more time. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we're finally getting the opportunity to connect. But yeah, my name's Tyler. My mother is from the Turks and Caicos, South Caicos specifically. So is my grandmother. I am born and raised in Miami. So growing up here, life was interesting, really different because you're around kids that have an American background, but you're raised with a Caribbean background. So I thought it was always kind of interesting because I've always had a different dynamic of things, especially when going to school. But just to kind of give the people a little bit more of an idea of who I am, I love to play basketball, love to connect with people. I love to talk a lot. One of my favorite things to do in the world is just to share a meal with somebody because you can learn a lot about somebody when you sit down and share a good plate of food. Yeah, so that's always one of my favorite things to do. I try to do that at least a couple of times a week with some new people if I can.
Oh, that's something your grandmother used to do a lot.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing, honestly. If anyone wants to ask you, oh, what do you want to do today? Let's go find a new spot to go eat. But other than that, I'm just here to make sure that everyone that I meet and come in contact with has a good time and enjoy themselves and be an encourager in any way that I can. So I always look forward to doing that, especially when I'm coming across newer people. So this is a really exciting time for me, this conversation. So I was born 3 months premature. Originally, my birthday was supposed to be 3 months. Originally, my birthday was supposed to be in June, but I was born on March the 25th. And I remember my mother was telling me this story. She's like, I think I was about 2 pounds and a couple of ounces. They had a teddy bear. They have this picture of me next to one of those teddy bears that somebody got me. And I'm significantly smaller than the teddy bear. So it was a very interesting time for her. She told me that it was pretty difficult because I'm her firstborn. So having to go through that off the bat was, I can imagine for any mother, extremely difficult. And the doctors, some time and on shortly after I was born, the doctors told her that I would have 2 weeks to live. By the grace of God, I'm here at 26 years later. So I'm really thankful for that. But you would think that would have just been the only hurdle, especially dealing with that from day one. But as time went on, doctors started to realize that I had cerebral palsy. So it affects the way that I walk or certain motor functions. So for me, my left leg is bent. It's almost like that. People call it bow leg, if that sounds more familiar. But yeah, so I had trouble walking. I remember I had to wear a brace all the time to school to help keep my foot down. And as a reward, my mother would let me not wear the brace on Fridays to just kind of give myself a break to let me feel a little bit normal. But I never really let that stop me. Like I said earlier, I love basketball. So regardless of what the physical limitation may have looked like, it didn't feel like that to me because I just love to go out there and play basketball. I felt like
you play well.
I played pretty. I would say myself, humbly, I would say I played pretty well. And I'm just thankful to God because every time I look back on it or just look at my situation now, it could always be a lot worse. But I don't really look at it as something that I was born with that's different or something that limits me. I look at it as an opportunity to, encourage people. I always say when you have a physical disability, is what doctors would call it, you're naturally going to get a lot of looks at you. But
Yeah,
I always say that regardless of what people are looking at, I always want to make sure that they're seeing the right thing. So you'll never see me second guessing myself. You'll never see me tell myself I can't do it. At the end of the day, I was put on this earth same way as you was put on this earth. I might walk a little different, but at the end of the day, like I don't let it stop me. I think
yeah,
that's what makes me unique.
yeah. And it's not the physical appearances that
Mhm.
that makes who you are, you know. I mean, what really matters is who you are internally, and
Yeah,
that's who you are, And I know sometimes people do discriminate against people how they look, but I'm grateful that you didn't allow that to define you.
I couldn't. I always say that I'm just considering how my life started with doctors giving me 2 weeks to live, and I'm just coming out of that with just having a limp a little bit when I walk. Um, I I'm thankful, man. Like I wasn't supposed to be here from the doctor's standpoint. So every day I always tell my friends I my perspective on life is a little bit different because I'm just happy to be here. Every day is a new
That's
opportunity.
that's a good way of looking at it. 26 years later,
Mm,
that's a good way of looking at it, especially when they only had given your mom 2 weeks,
yeah,
and God has allowed you to remain here for the past 26 years. So that's a very good perspective to look at it.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And on top of that, my mom, from what I remember, she told me that she had trouble having kids. So I could only imagine, like, you finally get to have that opportunity to have a child, and your first child doesn't seem like they're gonna make it through. So I can imagine that's kind of scary. So
Mm.
she still worries now as I'm well into my adult years. Understandably so, she's a mother.
Yeah,
But
mother's worry.
yeah, but she knows that, at the end of the day, like you can't really tell me anything. I'm always gonna try to be myself, regardless of what it may look like. I'm always gonna give it my all. So I'm just thankful to God that every day when I wake up, and I don't get to reflect on it as often, but when I do, I am very thankful of it because things could have been a lot different. But yeah, I'm here to be able to do the things that I want to do, but also get to do the things that I love to do at the same time.
Yeah, and we must enjoy each day as we wake up each day. We must enjoy life,
Yes, very. Hmm.
Yeah. So what do you think inspire you to be so positive about your life?
That's a great question. I've never really, I think I give a lot of credit to my father
Okay.
because when I was growing up, I'm my dad's oldest son, and my father, he was always like he could do stuff with his hands. Anything that you need a man to do, like he could do it. And I think since the fact he never coddled me in any way, he was never like, "Oh, don't do that. You might hurt yourself, or this might be too difficult for you." Like, if he told me to do something, regardless of what it was, he would expect me to do it to the best of my ability, regardless of what I had going on at the time. And I think because of that mindset, I've never really looked at myself as limited. I know when people would come
Gotcha.
up to me, yeah, people would come up to me and ask me, like, "Oh, Tyler, why do you walk like that? Why do you walk like that?" And I don't answer, but to be honest with you, I've had moments where I even forgot like what was going on. Like if people
Mm.
ask me, I have to be reminded of what I'm going through. But not only do I have a great family, and since day one that's always supported me, my cousins never looked at me differently. Like whatever they went to go do, I went to go do. I was never treated as um like I
Different.
was fragile. Yeah, different
Mm.
yeah. So I'm really thankful for that. But I can honestly say, like, as time went on, I started going to church and people would talk to me about, my leg and everything. I never really had the mindset of, oh man, I really got to try to be positive about this because when you're born a certain way, it's all that you know. So I never really
Unless,
looked at it. Yeah, I never really looked at it as the standpoint of, well, I'm different from other people. I'm limited because I have nothing else to compare it to. So
Mhm,
it's pretty, I always tell people if I was to come up to you and be like, hey, why do you walk like that? And you walk completely normal, leg is straight and everything, you would look at me like I was crazy. Like, what do you mean? Like I was born this way. This is normal.
mhm,
I look at it the same way for myself. So I've never really had the mindset of, oh, this is, a limitation or this is a little bit different. It's just, all right, everyone else walks like this. Tyler just so happens to walk like this and has other stuff going on. So I'm real thankful. My family really helped solidify that for me. So I go play sports. I used to do track for a little bit. I played volleyball. So and I never approached any sport that I wanted to play as I'm not sure why I'll do this, but my family did a really great job instilling a confidence in me that I feel is pretty unshakable to this day.
Well, Tyler, I admire you. I really do, because there are people who we classify as, let's say, for this purposes, let's say as normal. I'm just saying, not different, right?
Mhm.
And they lack so much confidence. And you were born, with, issue with cerebral palsy, and you don't let that, keep you down. And like you say, you don't think anything anyway, and you have maintained your confidence level, and I think that's admirable. Um, of course, you're normal. I'm just saying for this interview purposes. I mean, when we
Yeah,
compare people, um, you maintain that confidence. A lot of people look differently. A lot of people like how they look. They look normal to us, but they don't. There's something about them they don't like. But you
yeah.
have accepted your state, and you're
Mhm.
living with confidence. Yeah. And now you told me that prior to the interview, you mentioned to me that you're also diagnosed with leukemia.
Yes, I was, how old am I now? I'm 26 now. I was diagnosed with leukemia in June of 2010. So I was 13.
Oh,
And that was, honestly, when it happened, considering the fact of being born premature and then having to deal with the cerebral palsy, I honestly thought to myself, anything from here on out would be smooth sailing because why would anything else be added to my plate? Because I already had so much happen to me. And
right.
I'm not even an adult. But I, when I got cancer, that was the only word that I could say is interesting because I've never really dealt with anything at the time. I've never really dealt with anything that, affected my life. When I was born premature, I was a baby. I don't remember that experience. So I can only hear about it from the perspective of others. But dealing with cancer, especially at an age when you can kind of grasp everything was going on, I can honestly say it was tough, but I think the toughest part of it all was seeing my mother go through it. It was just like
Mm,
it's just something else that she has to worry about. We
mm,
process stuff a lot differently. So I can only imagine to this day, and I'm doing fine now, but to this day, it's something that still crosses her mind every now and then. Like if I get sick and it could be a cold, like your
mm,
mind can go places. So it was a time. I
mm.
really learned a lot about myself during that time.
Yeah. And so, are you in remission? I mean, how does leukemia work? Is that something that you could be restored? You don't have to have it forever. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually back in September of 2023, this past September, we actually had a scare with my leukemia. I wasn't able
Oh,
to get the access to the medication that I needed. So I ended up back in the hospital. So I was released in like the first or second week of October. And now everything's good. Thank the Lord. So I'm
oh, that's good.
back. Yeah, I'm back on my medication. Everything's good. But I don't want to say unfortunately because I don't really look at it as a daunting thing, but
Right.
my cancer is genetic. Is caused by like a mutation in your chromosome. So it's called
Mm.
CML. So it's chronic myeloid leukemia. So my medication job is just to make sure that whatever, well, let me backtrack. My leukemia is when your bone marrow heart produces your red blood cells and your white blood cells to fight off infection. My body produces too many white blood cells, but they're not good white blood cells. So it's
Oh,
almost your immune system working in reverse against itself. So my
oh,
medication, yeah, so my medication for the day just keeps those blood cells, those bad ones, to stop reaching the
I
other
don't.
ones. So it
Ah,
just,
so not to have too many white blood cells.
yeah. So my medication just, the best way I can describe it is it just kind of makes sure that it's directing traffic, make sure that nothing's
Oh,
supposed to get through that isn't supposed to get through.
I got it. It's like like an obstacle. So, how much medication do you have to take per day?
Thank thank the Lord. I only have to take a pill a day. Like I'll wake up in the
Oh,
morning, eat it with breakfast. The only side effect that it might have is, my stomach might hurt every now and then, but nothing
mhm.
compared to what it used to be when I was younger in the hospital and to what I've seen other people go through. It's really not too much. I don't want to downplay what having
Mhm.
cancer is because I feel as if I could come across as that. But the truth is, I've seen other friends of mine that's battled through cancer. I've known people that's passed away from cancer. I remember when I was 15, this was 2 years after I was out of the hospital. A girl of mine, we were friends, and we used to go to this camp where kids with cancer would go. And shortly after we left camp, unfortunately, she had a relapse and passed away. So I've seen so many different things through having this disease. I've seen the beauty that comes out of it, but for the most part, I've seen the fear, the pain that comes along with it. So considering the fact of what I have to deal with now and knowing what people still have to deal with to this day or back then, I'm just thankful that, you know, God gave me what he gave me because I
Mhm.
know what it's like to be on chemotherapy, all the shots and feeling tired. And when I was in the hospital, I was, if I remember correctly, I was about 85 pounds. I was
Oh,
tiny. Yeah. So I
that
know,
is.
yeah. So I know what it's like going through every step of the way dealing with that disease. So every time when I do think about it, I don't think about it often, but when I do, I'm genuinely really thankful that God was able to pull me out of a place just to be able to sit here and talk to you about others and other people about the stuff that people go through because you just never know. I feel as if I carry myself in such a way to where people would never know the extent of what I've been through
Mhm.
because I always walk around with a joy as if nothing ever affected me at all. And I'm thankful for that peace that God's given me in that aspect.
And I think that's very important that we must be at peace. A lot of us, we spend a lot of our days and nights worrying about things and situations that you have no control over. And
Hmm.
I just love your attitude that you're full of joy, and you are at peace. And I think if all of us could come to that point, I think we'll have a great society, you know, because a lot of people worry and they end up suffering from stress and they end up even dying because they're worrying. But you are
Yeah.
at peace, and I think if we could reach that point in our lives, I think that's a big step to
Yeah.
achieve.
100%. And it's easy to worry,
It
because
is.
it's easy. And as human beings, we have a lot of time. We have a really hard time looking past. And I'm not just saying this just to sound motivational. I'm just speaking because
No,
this
no,
is
no.
something that
I believe you're
yeah,
sincere.
that I struggle with myself. But we have a really hard time just seeing past our specific circumstance.
Mm,
And I used to feel really down about myself because I used to look back of every experience that I had with being premature, cerebral palsy, having cancer, thinking that, okay, if I went through all of that, I must have something really extraordinary to show for it. But at the end of the day, sometimes being able to go through the worst of the worst and still coming out of that and being able to smile every day, regardless of what the road may look like, making it through that storm, I feel like that is the flashy reward to show at the end of it. And I really had to pray on in and get my mind right, thinking like, I don't want all those experiences that I had in the past to go to waste, meaning that I would
Hmm.
hate for me to have that experience of cancer and everything else just to be like, well, I got this out of my own selfish ambition because someone else could be watching this whose son has cancer or whose daughter has cerebral palsy or someone who's had a premature baby. You just never know. So I think it would be a waste of the experience, or I wouldn't be making the best out of what happened if I didn't take my experience of what I went through in those bad moments and use it to encourage the next person.
I love it. I love it. And that's why we're having the show as well. This is another way, to educate the people and to encourage people. I love it. Now, I also read that you were you could correct me, but you did special announcement at one of the basketball games.
Yes, I
Tell
did.
us
I
about that and
did.
how were you selected? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was elected through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So what they
Make Wish.
did, Make-A-Wish.
Okay.
So they're an organization to where like if kids have terminal diseases, they meet with the family and grant them like a grand wish of anything that you want to do. For example, a lot of kids that do get cancer are a lot younger, like 5, 6 years old, so they don't want to go to Disney World or take a trip here. So a friend of my dad's from his church back home had signed me up for Make a Wish. So they got in contact with my mom. They came to the house. How old was I? I was 15. And
Hmm.
they're asking me, they're like, oh, hey, Tyler, we want to grant you for a Make a Wish. What what would you look to do? And I remember looking them in their eye. And I was honestly thinking to myself, like, well, if I'm going to do a wish, I want
Hmm.
to do something that at least makes me famous. So I can build off this, or at
Right.
least put some money in my pocket. So I told them I would want to be a Make a Wish broadcaster. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, I want to be able to be in a game, call the plays, speak to a player, all of that. At first, it almost didn't happen because the I did it with the Miami Heat. It didn't seem like they were going to be able to do it at first, but
Hmm.
thankfully, it was able to come through. So they picked me up in a limo, took me to the arena. I got to see backstage, got to talk to the players, did an interview with the players. So whenever you're watching a game, the people that talk in the background, that's what I got to do. So it was to this day one of the best experiences in my life. But
Oh, well, wow.
yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and I just know God had something to do with it because I think 2 years later they asked me. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. A year later, they asked me to come back to do it again, and no kid ever got to do their wish twice. So
Mm.
they were just like,
And you,
"Hey,
and
we
you
really
did it?
like
You did
having
it
you."
twice?
Yeah, I got to do it twice. Till this day, I'm still in contact with the organization. When I'm in town, if whenever I'm in Miami, like I'll reach out to them. They would send me like tickets on my birthday. So I'm just so thankful that it didn't just turn into a one time thing, but because I was able to form those relationships with those people, it's they're family now. We
Yeah.
keep in touch till this day, and that was 10 plus years ago.
What an incredible achievement. Congratulations on
Thank
that
you.
wish coming true, I mean, sometimes people make wish, they say, oh, I think nothing can happen. And here you went and you wish and it became a reality.
It really did, and now it's playing into. I think that experience really opened up what I want to do with my life. So I started a podcast. So I've been able
Oh,
to meet
really?
different people. Yeah, I did actually. Started it I think a year ago. So I've been able to meet different people doing that and do interviews. And not even if I do get to do an interview, just there's just a joy in connecting with people. And I feel like as human beings, we all long to connect with somebody on some sort of level. So the fact that I've been able to have that experience, which influenced me to start this platform, really helped me meet a lot of different people and have experiences just like how we're having now.
Okay. So what is the name of your podcast?
Yes, it is called The Truth Doesn't Hurt. It's on Spotify. And I named it that name because I go to church currently and I meet a lot of people that say, I don't really meet Christians who are willing to have a conversation or just hear me out from where I'm at. It's always judgment or immediate correction without understanding of the reason why you're correcting this person. I'm very big on no one's able to help you properly if they don't know exactly what you're going through. So we can't, as a church, put people in a position to where they feel like they can't talk about what's really going on. And if people aren't talking about what's really going on, how can you properly correct people? But not only from the standpoint of correction, but how can you properly love on somebody, really be a friend to that person if they're not willing to open up? So I just wanted to create a space where people could just come on there, be themselves, talk about whatever going on because the truth hurts, but it doesn't have to because the truth is something that frees us. So that's the whole point of the podcast. I've been really blessed to do that.
Nice, nice. I love it. I think you probably should consider documenting your story in a book or a short film. I think that's something you might want to consider doing. So I think you have a wonderful story. I mean, going through all of this, and you still there being very joyful and you know and being at peace. I think
Yeah,
and you're inspiring other people. You know, you're doing
I'm
a lot that
trying.
many people wish they could do what you're doing. Yeah. So, I mean, on an average day, though, like I know you're faced with challenges. We all face with challenges. I face challenges. Um, but what what are what are some of the main challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that because I feel as if I could carry myself in such a way to where nothing's really bothering me. But I, as much as I like to talk to people about anything, I love to talk about like what I'm really going through because I just try to be as authentic with people as I can. I think the
Mhm.
challenges that I am facing is where I do have my moments where I can be a little bit like hesitant in something that I want to do because
Mm,
it's one thing to be confident with my leg if people know me, but it's a little bit different where it's a little bit different when you're meeting new people because they're just meeting me and just seeing like, oh, I'm just seeing Tyler, I'm just seeing his legs. So it's easy to think that there's a limitation. And my biggest issue would just let me stop thinking about myself how somebody might be thinking about me. Because at that point, it's not even
mm,
true.
mm,
I'm just making up something in my head. But I always try to tell myself, like, I'm struggling with this. And it's mainly if I go play basketball somewhere new, I might not play the best that I can or just be hesitant to just enjoy myself because I never want to be looked at as less than. But
mm,
I've been telling myself, like, at the end of the day, like, how people perceive you is none of my business. I already know how I view myself. Most importantly, I know how God views me. And so if I already have those two things up aligned in the right way, it shouldn't really matter what anyone else thinks about me, which is much easier said than done because we live in a generation where there's social media. You post so people feel as if that they know you. There's a fake sense of intimacy of which I like to say. But
yeah,
so in those moments, it's hard to really be yourself because most times people don't know who themselves are. So
yeah,
I I struggle with that sometimes because I always want to feel like I'm putting up a front that nothing's wrong, but I've learned recently that I'm my strongest self when I'm willing to be vulnerable. So that's
mm,
one of my struggles, and that's something that I've been
mm,
working on. So
mm. What about a full-time job? Is that a challenge um, with some of the health issues you face? Is that a challenge finding a permanent job, or that's not a challenge?
not it's not really surprising. Thankfully, I've had jobs to where if I'm on my feet too long, it could be a little difficult, but
Uh-huh.
never to the extent to where I don't know if I can do this. Thankfully, I'm at a point in my life now where I work a job where I work an office job, so I sit at a desk,
Hmm. Okay.
interact with people, thankfully, and I get to work from home sometimes, which I'm really thankful for. But I've had jobs before where I've been on my feet too long and, like my feet hurt, whatever it might be. But thankfully, I've never been one to not vocalize how I feel. So I always try to
Hmm.
tell my employers, like, hey, like, at the end of the day, I don't want to be looked at as someone that can be a possible hindrance or someone that can't do what the other people can do. So I've been, I'm really thankful that I've always had jobs to where that's able to accommodate me if I haven't needed any, but if I did need any, they'd be able to help me out the best way that they could. So
Mm,
Thankfully, I've been able to provide for myself with no problem whatsoever. Because I'm sure there was a time in my life where my mom wondered, would he be able to do so going into
mm.
adulthood? So I've been doing great in that regard. So I'm really thankful for that.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Now, you know, throughout the world, we're facing, I believe, a global issue of young people killing one another. Murder rate is so high among young people. Of course, you know, older folks as well. But there's a big trend with a lot of murders taking place among young people. And you know, we have everybody thinks they have the solution, especially when it comes to politicians. They think they have the answers and they campaign on these things. I know you're 26. You're a young
Mhm.
person. You've interacted with people. You mingle with people. Based on your knowledge and the interaction you have with people, what do you think is driving people to commit these violent acts?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's only one thing. I just feel like it's a lack of just knowing who Jesus is, to be 100% honest with you. Because
Yikes.
I've known people who's been in a lifestyle that condones the violence behavior to where when they leave the house, you never know if they're gonna make it back. But I think we just live in a world now to where everyone has such a sense of self in the worst way, almost thinking of where, like you said, they have the solutions. Everything is me, me, me.
Yeah.
Naturally as human beings, we're a lot more selfish. And then if you hold on to that, you're gonna find yourself compromising the way in which you should be just for your own gain. But at the end of the day, like the Bible itself says that what good is a man if he gains everything, if he forfeits his soul? And I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. At the end of the day, like me as a young person, God willing, if I get older, I try to tell myself, regardless of what I accomplish here on earth, and I heard it in a song, but the song had said, if the highest thing I reach is at his feet, then I've done everything. And it's such a sobering thought because it's just, if I can just do what I need to do to just be where I'm at the foot of Jesus, everything lines up. And we don't have a
Mm,
lot of people that grasp onto that. So I think, especially as a younger generation, so where you're being influenced by music, television, all this different stuff, and it's all in your face all the time. Like it just never stops. Like it's important to take that step aside, make that time, build those communities with good people that hold you accountable. I feel like accountability is really isn't something in the world these days. I feel like if you focus on the one making him that main person, that main goal in your life, and doing the stuff that trickle down from that, I think that's the best thing, the only solution for our generation of young people.
Tyler, you got it. Tyler, you got it. You hit the nail on the
Yeah,
head. You got it.
I've just seen it in my own life, and I just always tell people I never like to be preachy if I'm not talking about it. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen where things didn't work out because I deliberately wanted to do stuff my own way, and I'm still working on that now. Like I'm young, I make mistakes, but if there's anything that I've learned that's for certain at my age up until this point, it's just if I keep God out of the center of my life, everything will continue to be unbalanced. So that's
That's
what we
the
need.
Tyler, that's the answer. That's the answer. God, put Jesus in everything. Put Jesus first. That's the answer, Tyler. And how do you think, you know, we could get this message to the young people and to the world? How do you think we could go about spreading this and making people be aware and conscious of this is the answer?
Yeah, and 100%. And I think
Mm,
the best way to do it, and what I tell my friends and family all the time, is when you look in the Bible, when Jesus hung out with the disciples, right? He hung out with 12 people constantly.
mhm,
In the Bible, it says that they eat and drank with each other daily. Now we live in a world where everybody has jobs, kids, families, whatever. So the daily part could be a little bit unrealistic all the time. But I genuinely believe that God threw that in there because even though it may have seemed a little excessive from our standpoint now, but I think he put that in there because it really standpoints the importance of it. So you can bring people to church and they hear a good message, the music is good, and those are all wonderful things. But who are we sending them to? Are we setting up younger people with the tools outside of that building to where
Yeah.
when they wake up on Monday morning, they're able to take, okay, this happened on Sunday, let me carry this into Monday. This happened on Monday, let me carry this to Tuesday. Like, are they willing to take the tools that they're being equipped with on a Sunday and carry it every day throughout the week? So I always say, like, hey, if you want to invite people to church and really make a change and influence them in a way of, you want to be impactful, because I hear a lot of kids tell me that at church, like, I want to bring my friends to church. I want to, bring them here. Like, Jesus went from city to city, walking, hanging out with these people in these people's house. I'm like, if you really want to go ahead and bring these people in the building to where you see change, go out and be that change. If you know somebody that only plays basketball or whatever, invite yourself to go play ball with them. Invite them out to eat. Take a step into their lives and make that change, because that's essentially what Jesus did when he came to earth. He left the throne room of where he was at, left heaven, the most comfortable place you could think of, to step down with
Mm.
us and make that change so we can be up with him. So if we want to see the change in young people to do exactly, not only do what they need to be doing, but doing what impacts the next younger person, we need to equip them with those tools to where when they step out in the workplace, like, oh, you're gonna go play basketball with your friend? Oh, Jesus came up in conversation. Now I want to go play ball with them. I want to go eat here. Inviting people into your day-to-day lives will show them who Jesus is, because that's exactly what Jesus did.
Wow. Very practical and very realistic as well. And that is what we need to do. That is what we need to do. And I hope people watching the show, will be inspired and rise up and start something, because we need to save our young people from dying to violence and getting involved in gangs. We need to find a
Mhm.
way to do that, and it's possible. All we need is Jesus. Wow. So Tyler, what are your plans? I know you have your podcast show. Um, what is your future? What are your plans for your future? What do you see yourself doing in the next couple of years?
Yeah, God willing, I'm really hoping to where this podcast takes. Well, I want to change my vernacular. I'm trying to speak with more authority. I'm confident that this podcast that I have, or even just me being able to speak and connect with people, would take me to a level to where not only am I doing what I need to do for the kingdom, but it's able to provide what I need. I tell my mom all the time, the only thing I want in this life is a family, but outside of that, I want to be able to lead my family the way that God's called us as young men to lead our family. So I'm really praying that I can have a platform in a sense to where people get connected in the best of ways, to where whenever they listen to it, whether it be something on the radio or something that they watch via Zoom or anywhere, that each person could leave that being like, hey, this makes me want to go find out more about Jesus. I don't know what it is, but I want to find out more. I wanted to build up a spiritual curiosity to where whatever I'm doing, you can't help but to see Jesus. If I could just get people walking in the right direction, that's all I'm called to do. And that's all I really hope that my life can be. I hope that it can turn into my own business to where I'm able to travel and meet different people and do that. I get impatient sometimes because sometimes it doesn't look like it's gonna happen tomorrow, but Rome wasn't built in a day, nothing was. So
True.
things take time. But I'm really praying in the next few years that I'll be heading in that direction to where each day that goes by, that's becoming more of a reality for me.
Wow. So Tyler, how long have you been walking this path with Jesus? How long you've been doing this now?
Yeah, I would love to say my whole life, but I would say, realistically by myself doing it as I am, I would honestly say about maybe the last 3 years.
Three years.
I moved from Miami here in 2020.
So
And
where
I
are
mean, I
you?
met a
Where are
lot
you
of,
now?
we are in Tampa, Florida. So it's 4 hours. Yeah. So 4 hours outside of Miami. But I had people tell me at church, they're like, what inspired the move? And I can honestly say, I used to tell myself, I want to surround myself with different people, mainly people from church where I feel comfortable talking about what's going on so I can be corrected and led up properly. I told my pastor that I felt as if I felt as if I didn't move when I did move, I'd be so stuck in the comfort of what my life was. And it wasn't necessarily anything that was super bad, but I wasn't really challenging myself to get connected with God on a deeper level.
Mhm.
But if I didn't move and I moved, I would have been so stuck in my comfort to where I would have been comfortably sending myself to hell. And
Mhm.
that's just something that I didn't want. And at the end of the day, when God's working on you, you're going to be more uncomfortable than most because constantly continue to shift and mold you. So I would say about 3 years, I've been starting to take it real seriously. I'm not sitting here telling nobody that. I hope no one thinks I read my Bible every day. I'm still working on that. But
Yeah,
yeah, but I've just been trying to put myself with the correct people to where whenever I need to be corrected, there's no hesitation in correcting me. And with them doing that for me, I'll be able to do the same for the next person.
I really admire you. Wow, you don't find too many young people taking the path that you're taking. I just be continue to remain focused, and continue because I believe there's a greater purpose for you anyway. And I really, really admire this work you're doing. Is there anything that you need help with that, people watching that can help you in any way? Is there anything that we can help you in any
Yeah,
way?
yeah. Honestly, the only thing that I could ask for if people just donate to the podcast, stuff are expensive.
Okay.
Um, Content is required to be put out there consistently, but it's hard
Yeah.
to put out, good content if you don't have all the tools. Normally, how I record my videos, I go to a friend's house and use their equipment. But by the end of this year, hopefully sooner than that, I'll be able to put this stuff together to have that equipment to start have my own studio in this very room that I work out of, and start pushing out more. And I try to tell myself I want it to be big because I think a part of me does get a little big head thinking like it'd be cool to be recognized for this or just the status of it all. But I always try to humble myself and tell myself if I can put out a video at least once a week or once every other week, if I could have just one person watch that each time, and it's just like this young man inspired me to do whatever, as long as it's lining them up with the path of Jesus, that's a win. And that's all I really want to be able to do with this, and just let God handle the rest. So if anybody would like to help out with that, I'm more than thankful. Praying and believing that I'll get there eventually. But God says you don't have not, you have not because you ask not. So here I
Exactly.
am. So
Yeah. So how do we make that contribution?
yeah, I know a lot of people reach out to my mother and send her Cash App or whatever. So if you have her
Oh, okay.
contact information, just send it to her. And she's my secretary in that regard. Every now and then she'll let me know, like, oh hey, so and so sent you money. I'll be like, okay, let me know who they are so I can go thank them personally, because I know a lot of people know me through my mother,
Your
but
mother.
I like to connect and put a face to the name.
Got it. Yeah, and I think also on your podcast, you probably could put something at the end of the show, if you like to donate, the different ways in which people can donate. You could put that there as well, if it's allowed. I don't know, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you. It's certainly a pleasure to meet you for the first time, face to face.
Yeah, yes,
Well,
sir.
virtually, but it's still face to face. Um, and I want to encourage you again to continue on the path that you're doing. If you can make the impact of one person, that's better than none. And I think you're on the right path. Do you have
Yeah,
any closing remarks?
yeah. Is what I always stand on. Like, anyone watching this, if you're ever in that moment of a hesitation or feel like there's something more for my life, don't look at it as just like an inkling. Like, I feel like God's too intentional for us to just be like, oh, that's just a thought. Like, he made us in such intricate ways to where I don't feel as if he would communicate with us in a way to where it's confusing or you're not sure. He's very clear. So I would always say anybody who's having that second thought, young person, old person, no matter what you've done, it doesn't matter. He gave us the ultimate sacrifice. So if you're wanting to know what that next step is, like please just don't hesitate. Go talk to your pastor. Like do what you need to do to get in that right direction. And because at the end of the day, like life is only this short and eternity is this long. And I don't want to see nobody on the wrong end of that. So just that's the best message that I can. Like you're people always say, I'm living my best life, but then Jesus hasn't came yet. So the best is yet
Hmm.
to come. So this is your best life. I feel bad for you. So just take that next step and God's gonna handle the rest. So that's all the encouragement I have for them.
That was an excellent conclusion, an excellent message. And you've inspired me today, and you've also encouraged me to continue to move on as well. Because I have this YouTube, and sometimes it can be very discouraging. So listening to you today, you have encouraged me, and I'm quite sure you're encouraging others. With that said, I just want to say thank you again for being a guest on the Drexel SEMA show. I encourage persons to subscribe. I also want you to check out Tyler's podcast, subscribe to his podcast, the Nate Too's podcast, and be encouraged. I'm encouraged. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you, Drexel. I appreciate you.